Imagine this. It's 1:30 p.m. in Al Mujafaf, a quiet agricultural village in Egypt's Sharqiya Governorate. It's hot, it's still, and then the silence is just ripped apart by this deep, violent explosion. What comes next is just pure chaos. You have neighbors running out into the street, and they're immediately hit by this thick black smoke, and a truly devastating sight.
Right.
The blast was so powerful that an entire section of a house wall had just collapsed into the road. And in the middle of all the screaming, a woman is seen stumbling out. She collapses onto the ground, just, hysterically grieving.
And that woman was Azza.
That's Azza. And she's screaming to anyone who will listen, clinging to her little boy, and she's repeating this one story over and over.
It's a tragic accident.
A tragic accident. A gas cylinder exploded. She says she just barely escaped with her child. It's this terrifying performance, really, all designed to sell one simple lie.
But the scene itself, the physical evidence, it told a completely different story. This was no random accident. So our deep dive today is about peeling back the layers of that day. It's about understanding the 5 months of cold, systematic planning that led to that fire. What everyone saw as a tragedy was actually, as our sources confirm, the final act of what was later called devilish revenge.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole thing, because this wasn't an impulse. It wasn't a snap decision. Before all this destruction, there was a marriage, a 12-year relationship, 2 children, which really brings us to the central question. Who were Mohamed Askar and Azza? And how does a relationship that starts with so much love end like this?
Well, to really get the betrayal, you have to understand how deep that initial commitment was.
Right.
We're talking about 2016. Mohamed is barely 18 years old.
Yeah.
And he is just completely consumed with love for his neighbor, Azza.
Wow.
Family accounts say his devotion was, absolute. He called her his paradise. He was just fiercely determined to marry her.
Right.
And he did.
And they got married, had 2 kids. For a little while, they even tried to build a life in Cairo, where Mohamed got a job at a coffee shop.
Right.
But that city life and his, very simple, modest income, that became the pressure point almost immediately.
And that is where you really start to see the meticulous planning take shape. Azza insists they go back to the village.
Okay.
And she gives 2 reasons. The second one becomes her primary weapon. First, she says she's lonely and isolated in Cairo. But the critical accusation she makes is that Mohamed is bringing his friends home to use drugs.
And his family.
His family vehemently denied it. They suggested it was just completely fabricated, but it didn't matter. Azza had her narrative. Mohamed was irresponsible, corrupted by the city.
That's so interesting that she chose that specific claim. If the family says it's not true, it feels like it served 2 purposes, right? It gets her back to the village, and it justifies what she does next, which is all about financial control. Her focus shifts intensely to money. She's convinced he's wasting his coffee shop earnings on drugs and late nights.
Exactly. And so she starts making these increasingly exaggerated financial demands.
Which he can't possibly meet.
Not on his income. So the conflict just becomes constant and severe. His family, seeing all this pressure, they often stepped in. They would send Azza money themselves just to try and keep the peace.
But that didn't stop the conflict, did it?
Yeah.
Because as he's spending 5 or 6 days a week working in Cairo, she starts accusing him of cheating.
She weaponized his absence. She'd say, if you're gone that long, sometimes only coming home once a month, you must be with other women.
So Mohamed, his marriage is clearly on the brink. He decides to make this huge concession to prove he's loyal.
Right. This is in late 2022, just 5 months before the explosion. He agrees to completely change his work schedule to match her demands. 5 days in Cairo, but then the entire 2-day weekend, he's at home in the village. It was his last, best attempt to restore trust.
An attempt that really just sealed his fate, because that new schedule, that's what starts the clock on his murder. Within just 3 weeks of that new 52 schedule, this subtle, long whisper of pain begins. Mohamed starts getting a strange kind of on and off distress in his stomach.
And this detail is so critical to understanding the calculation behind the whole crime. When Mohamed mentions this pain, this mild, recurring pain to his mother, to his sister, and to Azza, the response from all of them is basically dismissal.
What did they say?
They all said the same thing. It has to be normal indigestion, from eating street food during his 5 days away in Cairo.
The brilliance of the plan, or I guess the sheer wickedness of it, was in that explanation. Everyone bought it.
Everyone.
So for 4 long months, Mohamed is suffering, thinking he just has some chronic stomach bug. He even starts taking unprescribed stomach medicine, trying to treat what he thinks is just, bad food.
And he's completely trusting her judgment. She's the one who keeps reinforcing that street food explanation. What he doesn't realize, what no one realizes, is that his wife is giving him small, non-lethal doses of poison in his food every single week.
Wow.
She wasn't trying for a quick death. She was psychologically conditioning him and his whole family to accept that this chronic pain was his new normal.
It's a twist of fate. A bit of chance. The calendar brings Azza's birthday. Mohamed, still trying to be the loving husband, takes an unexpected leave from work and comes home midweek to surprise her. And apparently the mood was actually calm and positive that Tuesday.
But his sister was still really worried about this 4-month-long stomach issue. Seeing him home unexpectedly, she takes the initiative. She books him an appointment with an internal medicine specialist for the next morning, for Wednesday.
And that appointment was the final threat to Azza's whole plan.
It was the one thing she hadn't counted on.
So Wednesday morning, Mohamed is ready to go to the doctor.
Mm.
As Azza steps in, she convinces him to cancel it, to just skip the appointment. She insists he stay home.
And she makes it a promise.
She promises she'll personally make him clean, home-cooked food, specifically vegetable soup, to finally heal his stomach.
And Mohamed, probably weakened after months of this pain and maybe touched by her sudden care, he agrees. He goes into the bedroom to rest while she goes to the kitchen.
She comes back, not with soup, but with a glass of juice. Mohamed drinks it, and immediately that dull, chronic ache he'd gotten so used to, it's gone. It's replaced by a searing, violent, immediate pain, a completely different feeling.
And that's the moment.
That is the moment.
Yeah.
Azza walks into the room and tells the incapacitated Mohamed the truth, that the juice he just drank was the final lethal dose of poison, and that his suffering for the last 5 months wasn't street food. It was her poisoning him week after week, her ritual of slow murder. He's now paralyzed, not just by poison, but by the absolute horror of his wife's betrayal.
But Azza wasn't done. As we said, this revenge had to be total, internal and external.
It just escalates into sheer brutality. She ties him up with a rope, then she gets a bottle of gasoline petrol, which she got easily from her father, who, and this is significant, was a dealer in flammable materials. She pours it all over Mohamed and all over the room.
And this detail just so chilling. Mohamed was still conscious, tied up, paralyzed but conscious when she lit the match.
She lit the fire.
She lit the fire, making sure he was engulfed. And then, before she leaves, she does one last thing. She had already removed the interior door handle. She locks the door from the outside. No chance of escape. Zero.
Then she grabs their son, leaves the building, and starts her performance on the street just moments before that massive 1:30 p.m. explosion brings the wall down.
Unbelievable.
When the authorities and the paramedics get there, the scene is just shocking. Mohamed's body is severely charred. But the paramedics, they spot something wrong. They immediately refuse to move the body. They won't declare it an accident.
It's a smoking gun.
The smoking gun. Remnants of the rope that was used to tie him up. Evidence of restraint.
And the security forces, they quickly confirmed those suspicions. They found these key discrepancies that just screamed premeditation. First, the sheer intensity of the explosion, the total destruction inside. It just didn't line up with her story of a simple butane gas cylinder. The amount of accelerant used was just far, far greater.
And second, the physical evidence in the bedroom was damning. That missing interior door handle. That's clear proof of intentional imprisonment. It shows someone wanted him dead with absolutely no chance of saving himself.
And then you have the testimony. Witnesses put Azza outside the home before the blast, doing her whole grief routine. But the most crucial piece, her own son mentioned to the authorities that he saw smoke coming from his father's room before the explosion, and that his mother told him to be quiet and leave right away.
So Azza's brought in for questioning, and with the weight of all that evidence, the testimony, she confessed. Almost immediately, she laid out the entire 5-month poisoning plan for them.
She even elaborated on how methodical the cover-up was meant to be. Her only goal was to make it look like an accident. She confessed she'd collected 5 bottles of flammable material just to be sure she had enough. She admitted she only used 1 on Mohamed in the room, leaving the other 4 hidden in a closet.
Wow.
Her only miscalculation was the force. She didn't expect the wall to actually collapse.
And forensic evidence, it backed up every single word. The toxicology report confirmed it. Multiple, spaced-out doses of poison over a long period. Perfectly consistent with her 5-month ritual. He died from the combined effects of the poison and, of course, the catastrophic burns.
If we try to connect this to the bigger picture, what's really astounding is the psychological mechanism, the
Really?
way she could maintain that facade for 5 months. She used the poison not just to kill him, but to actively destroy his health, his confidence, while at the same time using that street food excuse to keep up her cover as the concerned wife. This wasn't a crime of passion.
No.
This was a cold, sustained strategic campaign to inflict the maximum possible suffering before the final physical act.
It's just a story of complete familial destruction. Her need for revenge didn't just end Mohammed's life. It shattered the whole family unit. It left 2 children without a father and now without a mother. The details, I mean, the poison disguises indigestion, the canceled doctor's visit, the removed door handle. It just paints this picture of cold, relentless strategy.
Yeah.
It proves that sometimes the greatest tragedies aren't, impulsive acts of rage.
Exactly.
They're the result of quiet, calculated planning.
Azza wanted to ensure there was absolutely no ambiguity about his fate. She used 2 forms of murder at the same time, a slow internal poison that destroyed his health and trust over months, and then a violent external fire that just physically erased him. It really makes you ask yourself a question, doesn't it? Which one was the true vehicle of her revenge? The methodical betrayal of trust, or that final, irreversible explosion?